Hey everybody, I wanted to bring you some more information on this Anu that I'm now studying. And I've been so grateful to the universe for giving me the vision to be able to see these things that I guess that most people are not able to see. It's kind of funny because when I first started doing this a long time ago, I thought that I would just try to modify things. Now, when I say modify, what I mean is enhance them just a little bit, so everybody could see them. And man, I can't believe that to the levels of I had to go to in order to get people to see this stuff. So I really do feel like I was given a gift. And I think the gift that I was given, I can honestly feel like I was given this so that I can give this information to you as well. And I'm very, very happy to be able to do that. In fact, I can't think of anything that I would rather do than what I'm doing now and being able to bring all of this information that I'm finding to the table for you. It makes me very, very happy. In fact, you might even say that it puts me in a state of bliss. And so, anyways, I want to show you some interesting stuff about this Anu. I decided to read a little bit more about it because there wasn't as much detail as I would now like to know about inside Dan Winter's video. He touched on it, but he didn't go into the level of detail that I want to share with you. But I want to show you something here. If you take a look at this thing, and you can see this vortex going up through metal right here. If you take a look at the top of this, what you see is something that looks a lot like what you see on a caduceus. You see those wings at the very top. And so I believe that is basically the center I believe that when you see the caduceus archetype, this is what it's referring to, at least the center portion of it. And that's speculation right now, but I'm usually really good at picking out these archetypes, and I can see them really easily and stuff. So my guess is right now that that could be what we're looking at. And of course, then we have the snakes, right, that are normally curling up, and there's two of them, which correspond to both poles, right? And I think that's what this is. So I think that's what we're looking at. We're looking at a version of the caduceus here. And so I want to read to you some information about this thing, because if you remember a while back, I had a theory that I believed that there was a creationary force in the heart of the Orion Nebula, the vortex, that was what I had mentioned, that was creating the life forms that I was seeing in the Orion Nebula. And so I'm going to do a little bit of reading on this for you and show you some of the things that I found out. Now, what's important to remember is that before my discovery of this macrocosm version, what the Anu basically is it's a perceived subatomic particle. And the way that this was derived was based on remote viewing. In other words, these models, they came up with by people remote viewing things at a subatomic level. So basically, these people were right. And that makes it even more interesting, because their remote viewing, you can now pretty much see that they were right about it. And since we know that as above, so below, as below, so above, applies to everything in the universe and in fractality, then it doesn't surprise me at all that we would see an extremely large version of a subatomic particle that's the size of many suns sitting in the heart of the Orion Nebula. And so let me read a little bit of this to you. As we have seen, a chemical atom may be disassociated into less complicated bodies. These again into still less complicated. These again into yet less complicated. After the third dissociation, one more is possible. The fourth dissociation gives the ultimate physical atom on the atomic subplane, the Anu. This may vanish from the plane, but it can undergo no further dissociation on it. In this ultimate state of physical matter, two types of units, or Anu, have been observed. They are alike in everything save the direction of their whorls. So if you take a look over here, we have one that's moving in a positive direction, which is the one that looks like this. And you can see over here the mirrored version of this negative one here. And the difference basically between the two is that a negative Anu, or with these whirls going in this direction, basically suck things in from the physical plane. Let me go down here. Here we go. In the one case, force pours in from the outside, from the fourth dimensional space, the astral plane, and passing through the Anu pours into the physical world. In the second, it pours in from the physical world and out through the Anu into the outside again, vanishes from the physical world. So I guess you might say that it would be the alpha and the omega in a way, right? The one is like a spring from which water bubbles out. The other is like a hole into which water disappears. We call the Anu from which force comes out positive or male. Those through which it disappears, negative or female. All Anu, so far observed, are of one or more of these two forms. It will be seen that the Anu is a sphere slightly flattened, and there is a depression at the point with which the force flows in, causing a heart-like to form. Each is surrounded by a field. The Anu can scarcely be said to be a thing, though it is the material out of which all things physical are composed. It is formed by the flow of the life force that vanishes with its EBB. The life force is known to be Theosophists as Fohat, which we'll talk about here in just a second. The force of which all the physical plane forces are differentiations. When this force arises in space, that is, Fohat digs holes in space. The apparent void, which must be filled with a substance of some kind, of inconceivable tenuity, Anu appear. If this be artificially stopped for a single Anu, the Anu disappears. There is nothing left. Presumably, were that flow checked but for an instant, the whole physical world would vanish as a cloud melts away in the Empyrean. It is only persistent of that flow, the first life wave, the work of the third logos, which maintains the physical basis of the universe. This is entering. This is esoteric, folks. This has been hidden for a long time. This is really important information. Here's a large picture of one right here. You can see it's a self-feeding vortex. So we have basically a positive one and a negative one. And it looks like we're looking at one of those versions of it. So when I come over here and I look at mine, what I looked at was the bottom of it, because that gave me a good idea, since the top of mine couldn't see it as easily as the bottom slip knot areas where you can really tell. And based on what I'm seeing over here between these two, the positive one is the one that it looks like what I've got right here. So that means that from this, life force flows through this, and this spits out all matter in the physical universe. And since we're talking about something that, when I showed you in the Orion Nebula, is probably, this whole thing probably right here is the size of many, many suns, okay, that since it's a positive version of it, it's spitting suns out. And that's the reason why it makes perfect sense to me that inside the Orion Nebula, it's a stellar nursery. And here is where it's all coming from, right here. And so it makes sense to me that this would be the creationary system for spitting things into the physical universe from the astral plane and beyond. It uses these things. And also, if you look up Anu, here's where it gets interesting. If you take a look at the definition for the word Anu, you take a look at what it means in Sanskrit. Anu, in a word from Sanskrit, the classical literary language of India. In Sanskrit, Anu has many meanings, including atom. So, God created Adam. Adam and Adam are interchangeable. And guess what? Guess what all the churches are depicting as Yahweh, or God, right in the center of the Orion Nebula. What they're really pointing to is they're pointing to an Anu. Because Anu created Adam. Because Anu is basically, it says it's an atom or a molecule, and we know that these Anu basically use a life force called Fohat, which we'll read about right now. Let's take a look at that. This eloquent description of the nature of reality parallels the concept of Fohat found in esoteric science. Helena Blavatsky describes Fohat as personified electric vital power, the transcendental binding of unity of all cosmic energies on the unseen and manifested planes. On the earthly plane, his influence is felt in magnetic or active force generated by the strong desire of the magnetizer. On the cosmic, is present in the constructive power that carries out in the formation of things, from planetary system down to the glowworm and simple daisy, the plan in the mind of nature or the divine thought. With regard to the development and growth of special thing, he is metaphysically the objectivized thought of the gods, word made flesh on a lower scale, and the messenger of cosmic and human ideation. So, folks, this Anu, this right here, this is what they are calling in the churches God, which is the life force that flows through this thing that creates things in the physical plane. And so what we have in the Orion Nebula is we have stellar nursery. We have stars being born. And I believe that this thing right here is spitting them out into the physical plane. It all seems to be coming together now. And if you notice, it says that it's flattened a little bit. It's not. If you notice the shape of mine too, mine is shaped basically the same. I mean, even the slip knot is there and everything. So what we're looking at right here is we're looking at a caduceus inside. We're looking at an Anu. The spirals are definitely there. I've shown you the analysis picture. You can see for yourself in the unaltered version that, and you can't be colorblind at all to be able to see this stuff. You have to be able to differentiate color really easily. If you take a look at the unaltered or untouched version, you can still see the spirals in there. So when I do the equalization on that thing, and I bring the lines out with that one click, which is what I pretty much do here. You know, I'll just click it one time and bring it out. You can see the spirals, and you can see when we get down here that the spiral just doesn't disappear. It wraps back around, and then it moves back up through this thing, and it looks like it's, I mean, to me, this is the real version, the one that's always been perceived by remote viewers. Here's the real deal right here. The reason we can see this is because it's not at a subatomic level. We can actually see something that's going on. And now it makes perfect sense why they never told us about it. And I guarantee you that NASA has seen this. And my guess is the Vatican probably told them not to say anything. But when they say the creation of Adam, I don't think it means Adam ADAM. I think it means ATOM. And based on what I'm seeing here, this is a positive version of one, and that's the reason we have a stellar nursery out there coming from that very bright spot, which is exactly where this is located in the center of the Orion Nebula. And that's the same reason why all of these churches are depicting it as God. So it brings me to my last point, and that is that this is why it's so important for us to use our own minds, because it seems to me that if we had been left to interpret the Bible the way that we each wanted to ourselves, or other sacred texts, that it's quite possible we might have come up with an alternative point of view on the way creation happened. Everybody take care. I'll talk to you soon.